I'll get started with the first idea, which stems from a personal problem. I write on LinkedIn every single day. I have been doing so for 18 months.
Yeah, so I'm calling this idea a no-frills ClickUp. I'm a huge fan of Clickup. I write about it a lot.
I don't know about you, but I started to do this new thing, which is that when I go to some new video or a video that I don't have time to watch.
This one, so I do a mastermind with one guy who's a friend. It's pretty amazing. Like, he's a pretty lazy guy, but like, he's smart. And this stuff more or less runs on autopilot. I'm like,
Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the $1 Million Ideas podcast. Ken, how are you feeling about like the second episode now that we're doing this?
good. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. And hopefully we're getting better at it.
I think it's a process, right? Like I've done 2 podcasts before this and they sort of like petered out at maybe 10, 15 episodes because it felt like a lot of work. And even though there were topics I enjoyed about, I feel like you got to push yourself that much more when it's something which is not completely in your wheelhouse and you can talk about like all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I really like these are ideas, I was jotting down some new ideas for this coming week. And they're ideas that I would just, want to chat with you anyway and like flush them out in my own head. So of that, you can just off the cuff, with a little bit of prep.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. All right, so let's get straight into it. 4 ideas for people who are joining for the podcast or watching for the first time. Ken and I do 2 ideas a piece where we break the idea down, and we're currently only on episode 3. So we're working out the format as to how we're sharing ideas and working to get them better. So if you prefer to see ideas in a certain way or have feedback for us on how we can do this better, I hope that you will leave a comment below and let us know how that goes. So I'll get started with the first idea, which stems from a personal problem. Ken, you know that I write on LinkedIn every single day. I have been doing so for 18 months, and writing online every single day is hard work. And to get that done, I do a bunch of things. I either look up for inspiration in tools like Clio.so. I'm always looking at my analytics, but when you are that blank page looking at you, it's generally pretty tough to do. And that's where today's idea, linked intelligence, comes into. I saw a bunch of tools in the space for Twitter and analytics and inspiration, but very few tools in the LinkedIn space, which I believe utilize AI a lot more. So the tool is a very simple one. You sign up for the tool and you give it some context about who you are, what your writing is going to be all about, what are your goals and objectives. And then it essentially tells you like, okay, these are the 3 basic topics that I believe that you should do writing on. And then it gives you inspiration on each one of these topic ideas from people who have already written viral or posts that have done well. And that's about it. You get started with a few inspiration prompts and you do most of the writing over here. And then what happens is that after you finish writing, the AI, which will take a look at your writing and basically grade it as to how it did, how it's going to perhaps perform, and what you could do to promote it. And once you get through that, you post it, it posts onto LinkedIn. And because this thing has access to your LinkedIn, it can then check analytics for you. It can check when people comment on your things, because LinkedIn, I've noticed, is notoriously bad in alerting you when people comment and leave stuff on your things. And then you find it quite a lot afterwards. So that's the idea, which is linked intelligence. I would really like to see this tool exist in the world. And the pricing would be free for the first 10 posts every single month, then $9.99 to get a couple of posts done, depending on your perhaps follow account, $29.99 and $49.99. So at a blended rate of $25 per user, you would be looking at getting 4,000 users to get to your $1 million sort of like mark, because this would be monthly payments. And getting started is pretty easy because I would do everything that I just said manually for the first 10 or 20 people through Claude projects. And that's how I would get started. So that's idea number one. I know that you sort of like write on LinkedIn, so I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are, your struggles. Would this be something that you would pay for?
Yeah, I think there's something there. I think, I've seen a couple of other attempts at something like this that was rudimentary, like a year ago, plugins that write something, and like they were pretty crappy. Like I wouldn't be willing to post it, but I think, AI writing has come a long way, especially things like Claude. So I think if it does a good job, right, and if it's really smart about picking out like the right interesting stories, I think if it does that well, then you really have something. And I love the idea of like giving it, allowing the user to try it for free a couple times, and then like the proof is in the pudding. Like either the post does really well or it doesn't, and I think that's where it comes down to. It's like, do you really create good content that like will perform well?
Right. For anyone who's interested in testing this out, like just through the AI writing part, there's a tool which is called Spiral. It's been launched by the Every Media sort of like guys. So I think like that's also a really interesting model where they've got this collective of writers who post on Substack. It's a $20 subscription, and they're adding SaaS apps as part of the subscription as well. Spiral is one of them. So essentially, it gives you access to Claude without paying $20 for it. And you can actually write down your posts and it gives you some feedback, but it's actually very difficult and clunky to use right now. And I wouldn't recommend it as much, but for someone who wants to test it out, I think like you said, the tools are out there. What's missing is like an end-to-end workflow to get the results, you see? So the result that someone wants to get is to grow their personal brand, connect with their audience, and get that sort of like engagement going. And that's where I think over the last 18 months of writing online, I think I know a few more things than the average person. So if someone wants to build this out, I hope that they're going to reach out and build it, because I'll be happy to be user number one and give you a lot of feedback along the way as well.
One last point I just want to throw in there that I think is very interesting about LinkedIn in particular, because I post a little bit on some other platforms like X. And what I found with LinkedIn is like when I read the post, if I didn't look at who posted it, I could still pretty accurately predict how it performed. Because like you could just look at the quality of like the image, the quality of the storytelling, like the quality of the the hook, right? So it's a more democratic platform. Like if you put good content on LinkedIn, it'll perform. Whereas like I don't think the same is true of X. Like if you don't have much of a follow at X, like you put the best story on there, it'll still like be better. So I think like that shows that like now it's still a good time to kind of use and create some great tools like this, because people can really achieve some good things, I think.
Yeah. Here's the thing that I've noticed though, where have you used any one of these AI graders or things that checks whether a piece of text was written by AI? There's one free one that I found that people can check out. It's called Quillbot, and we'll link all of these links in the show notes. But Quillbot's interesting, whereby you can just copy paste text into it, and it tells you a percentage-wise thing as to how much of this text was written by AI. And what I've noticed on LinkedIn after experimenting with this stuff is that when your text enters like the 80% plus AI gen, it actually sort of like penalizes the impressions of the post. And I've checked this with 2 posts. I did it like the same post, I did it with AI and 80% plus. And then I did it with human like, where it was like 25% AI. And when you look at both impressions, this is just one anecdote, but I would love for someone to check it out. The human driven one was far more, you know, performing than the one with just 80% plus AI. So I think like LinkedIn has put in a AI grader in the middle, and yeah, I'd love for other people to chime in to see like whether they've experienced this or not, because there's so many people on LinkedIn which are purely just writing on AI and with AI and performing still. So I don't know how that's happening.
Yeah, I also see a fair bit of like AI that is not performing, but it still gets a little bit of visibility. Yeah, so I'm calling this idea a no frills ClickUp. Um, I'm a huge fan of ClickUp. I write about it a lot, and I run systems on ClickUp that I use for myself and for clients. But what I've noticed, like I've been using it pretty heavily for 4 years, is that it gets more and more expensive, and like each tier has more limitations, and they keep trying to bump you up. And then if you move up a tier, like it's often like twice the price per user, even though maybe it's only one user that needs that functionality. Like everybody, you need to buy it for everyone. So it's just gotten kind of annoying to get these price increases. And especially like for clients, like I'm kind of like embarrassed sometimes that, hey, like I thought it was going to cost something, it costs a lot more. So the idea here is I want to create a no frills version of ClickUp, because like I only use about 20% of what it has, and they keep putting more and more in. And my usage of ClickUp has not really changed in the last 4 years. Like it's more or less the same. And I think you could just build like a very simple version and offer it at a much lower price. So say like, I think the base version of ClickUp's like $10 a user. So I would offer it at like $5. And then if you're in higher tiers of ClickUp, then, it's a pretty big savings. Yeah, and that's the idea. It's just like a very basic version of ClickUp, and then just try to take their users that are kind of frustrated with paying so much.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that all these SaaS companies tend to do this. I've seen this with my Slack bill. I've seen this with, so GitHub has sort of like introduced this to a certain degree as well. And I think like, Jason Fried and the likes with the once strategy where you pay once is also interesting. But I like your low sort of like, I wonder how your app would compare with Trello. Like, do you think like Trello, like what's missing in Trello that stops you from using it?
So there's a few things in ClickUp that for me are very transformative. Like ClickUp to me is like many Trello boards structured well together. So there's multiple levels between this space, folder, list, task, which Trello doesn't really capture. And then like the whole thing of having an inbox, like I that is actually critical to the way that I use ClickUp. Whereas like the inbox in Trello is like, I don't even think they have one, or it's a small like notification thing. So there's a couple things that are absolutely critical to the way I work, which, yeah, I know Trello is free, but like I still would never move to Trello. Like I'd rather pay the higher price on ClickUp than move to Trello.
Right. Yeah, I think like, the people who have kept this, even what about like, so pricing was $5 a month, which means that you probably need to get 16, 17,000 users onto the platform to be paying that much. Have you checked out like Basecamp's pricing? Basecamp is $99 flat, unlimited users. And I also sort of like this. For example, like, through you, I've got to know a lot about ClickUp and things like that. And we use it quite a bit. And I see the ClickUp bills and stuff like that. They are like, if you move to annual, you do a bunch of savings, but that's a whole bunch of front loading of costs and all of that. But, maybe what we could do is that we could do this with a flat fee, because like most teams are going to be like 10, 20 people, like, small teams will be there. Maybe there's a free version for below 3 people or something like that. No guests. And at $99, you can sort of like just do unlimited people. And we might lose the capture on like 100 plus teams. But then if we can charge everyone $100 a month, then I think we need like 830 teams basically to do this, and 830 versus 17K users becomes even more achievable, I feel like, for some, because you could go directly after organizations that are frustrated like ours, which are like portfolio companies that are using this. You would get like 2-3 clients directly from us, because the 100 that you guys would charge is still cheaper than what our Clickup build today costs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a great, just go for those clients that they're using ClickUp, that their bill's higher than what you're going to charge, and say, hey, I'm going to do this for you. I'm gonna manage the migration, so it's very little effort, and you'll be doing everything you did today cheaper, and like, I'm not going to increase my price.
Yeah, and with the ability for people to spin up these tools much faster now and build them, I wonder how these incumbents are going to sort of like defend against this, right? Because I feel like it is only a matter of time that you see the delta right now for us is like, if we even wanted to build this, it's a bunch of tools that you got to get together. Even if you use Copilots and no code and stuff like that, it's still a considerable amount of work to get it to work at the level that you want it to work. I feel like that decreases considerably in the next 1 year or two, where if we wanted this, we could be like, all right, let's spin it up. And then it just becomes the acquisition game, which I feel like is going to be where most of the effort is going to be for most teams then.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity. Like, I was listening to this really good conversation where it was saying it was a SaaS co-founder of a pretty big SaaS, and he was talking about how like you can develop things so quickly today, and the incumbent, it took them a long time and it was a lot of work to get to where they are, because they had to figure out like what is the right customer experience. Like but they figured all that out, and then you're just copying them. Like, copying is so much easier than figuring it out. And so you add in all the AI and the co-piloting tools today, and you can just copy the 80% of what makes someone good really fast and very cheaply. And because the incumbents are kind of pressured from their event, they're either IPO'd and they've got VCs, and they're under pressure to increase pricing and revenue. And you just chop their legs out. Like, you take the whole kind of price sensitive group that they've had and steal them.
And I think we see this traditionally with a lot of people, like before, like Salesforce did the same thing with all the on-premise guys when they moved to cloud and reduced their pricing, with NetSuites and the like as well. You saw this with HubSpot coming into the CRM space and now trying to undercut Salesforce, which has got really expensive. So I feel like it's a cycle, but the cycle took longer in the past, right? It still required a considerable amount of capital, resources to get that experience out, to get to the go to market. What we were talking about earlier is the people who build personal brands and the people who get distribution. We've seen this all with all the big indie hackers. Like Thibaut has a new app in the space that I was talking about called SuperX. And again, he's like trying to push this app, which helps you to like grow on Twitter much faster. And yeah, he's just spinning up things so much faster now. And so the cycles are becoming faster. So I wonder where competitive advantage is going to lie then. Is it just going to be speed, or is it going to just be go to market for everyone then?
I think it's go to market, but it's keeping the price reasonable. Like, the minute you try to you just keep pushing the prices up, like someone's just going to create the 80/20 version of yours very quickly, very cheaply. And so I think this is going to keep all these big SaaS players in check. Like you mentioned HubSpot, like HubSpot's one that I'm using. I used to be a big fan of, and now like I hate their pricing. Like I would create like the 80/20 of HubSpot, as a no-brainer.
I think there's an app called Folk and Attio, Attio. I don't know whether you saw this. It'll be interesting for bringing up some visuals. But anyways, they went to all of these big B2B marketer SaaS guys and basically asked them, I think, the future of B2B SaaS or something. And then they took the New York Times sort of like big billboard for 60 seconds, and they flashed all of these influencer faces with their quotes on the billboard. And then what did all of them do? They took screenshots of all of their pictures and then started sharing them on socials. And it was like crazy viral. And this was a new CRM guy, which is in the spot. And like you pair this really smart GDM strategies with quick iterations of product. And I feel like the incumbents are just going to be sitting with their pants down and be like, I think it's going to get really interesting. And what you said, like fast teams, things that can do stuff out of the box, but at the same time, keep themselves as efficient as possible, will be the ones that sort of like get ahead. Cool. So heading over to idea number 3, I don't know about you, but I started to do this new thing, which is that when I go to some new video or a video that I don't have time to watch, I go to the video, I click see more, I click show transcript, I copy the entire transcript of the video, put it into Claude or GPT, and I start interacting with it like an asset. What did this person have to say about this? I already have set questions which I'm interested in asking about, the people on the pod or a video, and I've just found it to be a much faster thing. I also ask it moments like isolate moments where this person spoke about X, Y, and Z and give me timestamps. And guess what? These things are returning timestamps back as to where I can actually go back. And these are all prompts that I've built for myself. And so today's next idea is that I hate the process of doing this. I hate the process of copy pasting, putting it into a random chat and losing that chat later. So today's idea is called ClipWise. And the app's a simple one. You load it up and you sign in with YouTube or something, and then it pulls all your subscriptions in and asks you which subscription do you want to start getting clips off. And so you select the ones that you want. And essentially what the app does is what I'm doing manually. It goes, pulls the transcripts up. And what it also does during onboarding is asks you who you are, what your objectives are, what your learning objectives are. And then it's going to craft prompts for the transcripts, which will help you to get better. Because I think that's why we're all watching these YouTube videos. We want to get that piece of insight. We want to get some sort of like new sort of like way that people are doing stuff. But we all don't have that much time. And the tool would, again, be free for the first 5 or 10 videos that you pull into this so that you can see how it goes. And then I think monthly fees of between $10 and $15 with a yearly annual fee of $100 sort of like dollars over there. So we would again need something like, if it's like $15 and $100 a year, yeah, we need quite a few sort of like people to join the app. But that's the idea. I know you're a big YouTube fan as well. So I just wonder, what do you think of the base idea?
So I love it. I think like one thing that I think about a lot is why now? What has changed, right? And I think YouTube is a classic where the answer to that question is we are in the golden age of YouTube. Like there are so many good podcasts, and this is the way you learn now. Like forget about like, I don't ever go to conferences. Like I have these people that I respect a lot that are giving all of their secrets and how they operate on YouTube, and I'm just consuming it. And it's a ton of time that, I don't really have time for. And a lot of it's like the insights are repetitive, right? Like you watch enough of these and like, I would say 70, 80% of the insights are repetitive. So especially like if the prompt can pull out, hey, here are the things that are like new and probably interesting to you. And you just watch this. And the rest didn't know is like, hey, I've seen that. Like I got that insight already. I think like I love that. And then the other thing is like I'm consuming all this video content and I don't have a good way to like refer back to it. Like I don't like having like notes and taking notes when I'm watching and stuff. And I'd love to be able to just prompt and say, hey, I remember something about this. Like which one was it that I watched? So yeah, I think there's some like really interesting use cases here.
Yeah, my inspiration for this also came with an app that I used to use back in the day. It was called Blinkist. And Blinkist is an old app. It, I think, started 2012, 2013. But I was looking at their 2023 numbers and they did $50 million in revenue. Here's an app which also costs anywhere between $70 to $100 a year for the app. And what they do is they summarize the latest books and everything for people to read into these digestible formats, which they have a very pretty sort of like reader for in their app and things like that. So essentially my inspiration was like, look at how big Blinkist has become. We just want to get to $1 million and really cater. Like the ICP for this idea would be like these real knowledge workers who are continuously wanting to level up. And I already pay for a service which is called podcastnotes.org. And this guy listens to, I think, all the podcasts that we listen to as well. And he summarizes them. And I get an email once a week with all the insights. I'll send you one of these emails. And yeah, I still think it's worth $100 because if I don't have to watch like 7 hours of video, like even if I don't need to watch 1 hour of video that you do it, I still think like you're charging me per year 100 and I'm just saving, like, imagine how many hours you would save and how much is an hour worth. And again, I don't think this is a really complicated idea for someone to pull up. I think like I'm currently managing this through a Claude project sort of like thing, which is doing this for me. I believe someone can easily through their API build this separately. And I would pay $100 in a heartbeat in a year if you do this. So what about you? Would you pay $100 a year?
Yeah, I think I would, but I wouldn't pay like in one shot. Like if you offered me as a SaaS to test it out, $10 a month or something, and if all the value, yeah, like I definitely would. And I was a subscriber to Blinkist like in 2019. I'd read an article, and I forget how much they charge, but the motivation was similar. Like I wanted to have read a lot of books and consume that information. Like it would make me smarter or make me seem smarter. But here, I think the motivation is like consume a lot of information. And you have this easy way of like being on top of a lot of stuff.
Right. I think it's both like consuming the stuff and like what you said, storing the insights in a repository that I can go interact with in the future, favoriting certain sort of like insights and say, listen, this is really important. So, this is something that I like. It's signal that's heading back. And then you're entering this sort of like space where you are telling the algo, like, I like this. This was good. I want more of this. Find me more stuff like this. And the best part is like, that question that you had, oh, what did that podcast on Lenny, the guy was talking about this and that was really good. And if it's stored in this, it's only a prompt away for you to find it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one other thing I've thought about in the past that I find interesting is like, you can prompt and you can find out like answers to questions of like that leverages all the information in the world. Like a lot of times that is less interesting to me than just asking like, based on the information I've already consumed, like what am I trying to remember? And so I think this starts moving in that direction. I think that's going to be a big trend. Like, like people want quick access to whatever they've already learned.
Oh, that's cool, man. So again, I hope someone is going to take this up and do this. You got users ready to go, at least from Ken and my side. And I'm sure we will help you get your first 10 users very easily. So yeah. All right, Ken, moving to the last idea of the episode now.
Yeah, so my last idea, I called it AI Book Empire. This one, so I do a mastermind with one guy who's a friend for a couple of years now. And he's got this, he does books on Kindle and stuff, ebooks, and he does upwards, he does 7 figures a year for a while. It's pretty amazing. Like he's a pretty lazy guy, but like he's smart, and this stuff more or less runs on autopilot. And then the other thing that I saw was like Greg Eisenberg. They were talking about how there's still a lot of opportunity with using AI to write these ebooks, and particularly using JungleScout. And I have an e-commerce background. I was helping some companies that sell on Amazon in the US. JungleScout is a tool I'm familiar with. So JungleScout like helps Amazon sellers find out interesting niches. You know, it tells you the traffic, it tells you roughly like how much sales you're making in that specific niche on Amazon. And the biggest channel for selling ebooks for the most part in the world is like Amazon. So ebooks are on there as well. So you can kind of find out like these new fast growing niches on JungleScout and then just quickly pop out the book, right? And what's changed in the market is that they were not able to use AI to write such high quality books like you can now using things like Claude. So that's the idea is like, all right, just like pop out lots of books fast, sell them for like $10. I think Amazon takes 30%, you know, so you got $7 and maybe you spend like $5. So the main GTM is just using Amazon advertising. And I think, you know, it's worth a stab.
All right. So no, I really like that idea. I think like the first was the JungleScout one. And how do we find trending niches? This is sort of like a area that I'm super interested in. I don't know whether you've seen this tool, which is called Exploding Topics and things like that. There are lots of variations on top of it now, but they sort of like do these trend lines of stuff that is growing. And then if you pair that with these Claude sort of like AI writers, because I believe that most books don't have more than one or two key insights that they deliver. So if you do that well and you pair that, I think the part which I'm still sort of like, okay, we get the supply side of the books done, but the GDM through Amazon advertising, like, have you seen like people sort of like work this really well? Like we're spending a majority of our revenue on this, like 50% of revenue if we're saying on this. Like, how does that work?
So I've seen in the product world, some people do this really well. Like I have one friend, he started, I think, 25 brands on Amazon, product brands in a year. And his whole thesis was he was pulling the Amazon advertising rates from different niches and he had the sourcing cost and he had the consumer price. So like he could right away tell up, like, could he advertise the thing to profitably right from the beginning? And that's what I like about thinking about this is like, JungleScout tools give you a rough, like if you're going to write a book in this niche, what is the market size of that? Say it's like $50 million. And then you see that there's only 4 players and only one of them is good. And so you can assume, and I think they even give you a rough, like, all right, like that guy's making about $30 million and you see the quality of his books. And so you just know like, all right, like I got to beat that. And if I do, like it's worth $10 to $15 million. Like that is what I like about this. Yeah.
So I think like there's a trend over here, right? We talked about this in the Clickup idea, and we're talking about this again. There are incumbents in the market which have been using a certain process to generate a certain amount of revenue. And now with tools that are becoming available to almost everyone, like, you know, everyone has a shot, which means that either you have to up your game or you just have to move a lot faster in order to continue making the amount of profits or revenue that you've been making.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what I like about this is I don't think too many people, like there's a lot of people that have been in this ebook game. A very small percentage of them were using things like JungleScout and doing this methodically. And of those people, they were probably using real writers, right? So now like a very small group of people are probably now dabbling with all these AI tools and, you know, they're not going to cover every single niche. So I feel like the next couple of years, at least on this one, is a land grab of, you know, the person really understands creating good AI books, you know, methodically choosing the niche based on JungleScout and all this. I like it.
No, that's awesome. Cool. Well, another 4 ideas done. And I think that there were several ideas in this one, which if I was another 26, 27, 28-year-old sort of like trying to figure out how to get my thing beak wet sort of like in this place, I think like several of these ideas don't require you to go raise a whole bunch of capital and stuff like that. I think most of these ideas require you to get to your first couple of users, which Ken and I are probably your first couple of users. So you probably need to find another 8 more people, even cash advance in front and say like, okay, I'll build this. Here's something that I do. And then, you know, you have users ready to go. And I think like that's the opportunity that we have today. And that's why I believe, like, if we keep on doing this podcast, Ken, like, I'm pretty sure even if this podcast births like one or two sort of like companies that start with these ideas and become pretty decent, I feel like we would have also done a good service with this podcast as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is needed in the Southeast Asia region. Like the VC playbook has been like the only real playbook that any of my folks, friends and stuff in this region talk about. And this whole kind of like bootstrapping, testing stuff cheap, and like never having any ambition of going for VC money and just creating a profitable business fast. Like I want to see this trend take off in this region, and I think it'll bring good things.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that's a wrap. Always, we would appreciate the early subscribers to help get the distribution of these videos a lot faster. If you have any feedback as to how we're sharing ideas, other things that you want us to talk about when we're actually sharing the idea, please let us know in the comments or DM us. You'll probably find us online on Twitter or LinkedIn, where you can get in touch with us as well. But until next time, all right, Ken, see you next week then.